Hey guys, so this week we are doing a decent sized project. We're doing a back porch, a long sidewalk with some steps. The thing is though, from when we got it ready to when we actually poured it, there was a couple week gap. You'll be able to see in the video where we were getting things ready. There was a big hole next to the project and we didn't want people falling in. So we had to get everything prepped, come back a few weeks later, and then get it all poured out. By the time we poured it, hole was filled in, everything was good. But hopefully you guys enjoy the video. This one's been taking a while, but let us know what you think. Leave us a like, subscribe, and thanks guys. Boy, were we lucky that on the other side of the house, there was plenty of access, or getting the Bobcat to this point would have been hard, because if you can see to the right side, that hole's actually in there. So while we were working in this little area here, we were working slow and steady, not rushing anything. We didn't want anyone to accidentally kind of trip, fall over, and land in that hole. You can tell here we were having a little trouble because that little stoop that they installed, they put way too much slope in it. And doing ours the right way with just the right amount of slope was going to make that one look even worse. But at the end of the day, we had to make sure we were going to cover under it and then add the right kind of slope on ours. But we eventually figured it out. I mean, when they dug the hole even wider, they kind of messed with this form right here that the level's on. But we came back, fixed it up, and it worked out. So one of the good things about this job right here, once we got the top in, the amount of steps and how many was kind of up to us, since we could dig into the terrain some. This was one of those easy framing jobs when it comes to steps. Sometimes you have to divide the top from the bottom and get a good, I guess, division between steps, make sure all your risers are exactly the same. But there we just added enough steps till we were kind of digging in at the bottom. And then same with this step right here, we just added it off of this porch and then excavated the rest around that, because if we would have gone directly off of that porch outward, it would have made the outer edges of this porch too tall off the ground. And I've never been a fan of people who will build a patio and then the edges of the patio are 2-3 feet off the ground, and then it's a fall hazard where people can get hurt. So we try and add steps wherever we can so that the far edge and the corners aren't that far off the ground. When we were framing this side right here, the one thing we had to plan for is we knew the Bobcat was going to come back in through this area. So when we framed it, we made sure that the board between the three that went lengthwise here and then the one coming off the corner inward, we could pop them off real easy. Just screw, pop them off. And then once we were done with the Bobcat, we screwed them back in. Didn't have to worry about checking the levels. So as long as the one on the left and then on the one on the right are steady where we need them and they're staked in real well, the one in the middle, we can just screw it off. And then when the time comes, just pop it back in, screw it, and then add our stakes. So that makes it easy to be able to let the Bobcat come in while still making progress on framing the patio. And then here we are rip cutting the boards for the sidewalk. Next.
Patrona.
Yeah, he says almost killed it. He's like, you didn't see it? Doing curves with boards like this on the sidewalk adds quite a level of difficulty, because you want to get the curve as fluid as possible, but you don't want to snap your board. So that's a fun little balance to have here. So once we had our patio in and the steps in, we connected everything between both the points. We rip cut a whole bunch of 5-inch wide, 8-foot long boards, stuck them together, and then we connected point A to point B, and we started laying our stakes, trying to get that curve in there, but without trying to not snap the board. And in this bend right here, we actually snapped the board once. So we were trying to push the limit as much as we could, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way. But eventually I reinforced that area. We got it hooked up, started working on this corner here, making sure our levels is right. I'm always trying to double check that. The amount of jobs that were actually done correctly that I've gone to inspect that got ruined because someone just didn't check their grades right is more than there should be. So I always go through, double, triple check. Even though I'm certain we're doing good things, it doesn't hurt to check things. So I'll go through as we're framing, double, triple checking our grades, which helps a lot. I have found little mistakes and then I fix them. So I'm glad that's why I keep doing this. So when they did these 3 piers, this one here had like a little muffin top of concrete that just poured out. So we had to cut it, chip it out to make sure the patio came in flush. But that didn't take very long for the Bobcat. We came in, cut it, chipped it out. And then after that was done and the sidewalk was connected, we started working with road base, filling everything in, making sure there was a few inches and everything so that it was pretty stable. Now on the sidewalks, you don't need much because unless you go down and out in every direction, it's more about overbuilding the sidewalk because it will shift eventually.
Big hole.
And same goes for the steps on the road base. I've torn out too many sets of steps that are far too thick. I've torn them out as thick as 15 inches. So it pays to go in with some road base, compact it well, create a good proper foundation for it, and making sure it's just not too heavy. So if this area ever does get wet, there won't be heavy steps sinking through.
That's beauty. Okay, tráeme el...
And you guys saw there why we left that gap on either side of the patio so we could go through and fill in the sidewalk and the steps. Eventually we had to close this off, fill this patio in with about 3-4 inches of base, got it wet, let it soak for a while, and then we compacted well. But that's why we left the opening on the patio so that the Bobcat could go through and then pull out and wrap it up once we got to this point right here. I'm pretty sure I spent like 45 minutes running the plate compactor up and down this area, just making sure that it was very solid so for when we ended up pouring. And don't get me started on the weather. A lot of us, you'll see that we hung out in this shady area because by about 9 or 10 o'clock, it was already 90 degrees on this job. The whole week we spent getting this ready was incredibly hot. Another thing here, I tell people, one of the best things I like about the Bobcat, I might sound silly, that it's a great little mule for carrying our tools to and from wherever we're working. So we'll pack it in full of tools and then we'll go around the house and take it out front. So the area that we were working in, which had the dirt really close to our work area and had already made us kind of uncomfortable where we had been working, they ended up about halfway through us getting things ready here, digging closer to the point where this area right here where the flag was, the dirt eventually ended up the little cliff ended up right on the edge of our forms, which led to us canceling. We didn't want to, but at the end of the day, safety is more important than getting the job done. Plus, there wasn't much of a rush. There's a lot of things that needed to get done on this project anyway, so it was better just to wait, get it poured out. But as you can tell, it was bright early in the morning. We had to come early in the morning. Like I said before, every day that we were here was extremely warm. So once everything got prepped, we came in, even though it was only about an hour and a half of work, we wanted to do that hour and a half early in the morning so that it just wasn't very hot. Usually we'll start on a Monday, we'll pour on a Thursday, and Wednesday's kind of a lazy day where we just wrap things up. And you can see here where on laying the rebar, I cut little pieces of that fiberglass rebar and I jam it into the ground so that we can continue that rebar in a nice little curve all the way around. And since it's made out of fiberglass, I don't have to worry about it rotting away or causing any issues with the concrete. But that's the way you get the bend around a sidewalk like that. You use little, I guess, fiberglass rebar stakes to hold things in place. And then as for the patio, well, I mean, that's easy. It's a simple shape. Didn't have to worry about any bends or anything. We tied into all the surrounding concrete, this stoop, the one where the steps were, the driveway at the very front of the house. But all in all, with all those tools, we just flew through this. Like I said, we were done about an hour and a half. Whew. I'm so glad we bought that rebar tire. It makes everything go so quick. By the time I'm done checking my grades, my wife, she'll be done tying everything up. And she's gotten really good with it. That's why we can do a whole layout of rebar on an area like this about an hour and a half. Careful, don't go near the edge.
I'm trying to do my walkthrough.
Okay. Yo, did you guys see how deep that hole was and how close it was to the sidewalk there and the steps? That's why we had to move this for way after this was recorded. I mean, it took about 2 to 3 weeks, but when we came back, it was filled in and it was all good. But that's why we had to cancel the pour. We weren't gonna risk in that little stretch right there that people fall over, have an accident, stuff like that. And if you see later in the video how the pump was being run, it wasn't even possible. But all in all, everything got framed, rebar got laid, we got prepped, and I will see you guys at the pour. Thanks, guys. Now that the hole was filled in, we came in the day before this pour just to make sure everything was still where we wanted to. Besides a little bit of washing out in the steps of the road base, everything from here all the way to the front of the driveway was very sturdy, so we weren't worried about the base in any way. You can see here where it starts looking very crowded, but once we all had to finish, it started to thin out real quick. A great example of why we didn't want to pour this when that hole was there, just look at where everyone is standing, where the pump is laid out. It just wasn't possible to get this done that way. Unless we would have ran the pump all the way around that side of the house and figured something out. This little sidewalk right here wasn't able to get done till this hole was filled in. But once it was done, I mean, now we had plentiful access. Everyone was happy finishing. We started laying out our joints. It set up kind of quick, but we got it knocked out. Great crew of guys. Had 2 guys on the porch, another 2 on the steps along with the sidewalk, and then 1 on that little front sidewalk.
La trae muy bien, señora. ¿Ya se está poniendo, Walter? Ya está agarrando. ¿Qué está yo? No. Ok.
It set up so quick that this guy with the broom, he was laying joints and then he came back to broom the job. That's how quickly it went.
Ya lo ejecutamos.
Ah, bueno, pero no por mucho, ¿ah?
Once we started getting a good pace going, there was one guy, like I said, on this front sidewalk, these 2 on this step, and then 2 over on the porch, and then we met on the sidewalk. All in all, what seemed like a whole bunch of guys ended up being just the right amount, gave everyone enough room to work well. We ended up putting 1 joint on each step. We always like putting joints on steps because no matter how good you do this, for some reason where the step meets the face right there, it always ends up cracking. So we had a joint because it doesn't bother people walking and it's just good to catch the crack.
Hey guys, Joe from J&M Concrete here. So we poured at 9 a.m. 4,000 microfiber, number 3 bar, 2 feet off center. Everything came out well. Started to get warm on us, but there it is. We sprayed some Cure on it. On these really hot days with slight breeze, I always recommend using a nice Cure. Make sure that surface doesn't cure that quick. You want to make sure the moisture stays in the surface. It'll reduce your cracks on the surface and it'll just make the job overall that much better. This also reflects the light from the sun. But there it is, guys. Give it a light spraying of the Cure. What do you think? I think it came out really nice. Hopefully you guys liked what you saw. Hopefully you guys learned something. Take a look at that 360 video I'm going to upload about this job. And if you guys have any questions, give us a call. But there it is, guys. Leave us a like, subscribe. See you next week.